Hi guys, my name is Jessica and I will present to you Race and Ethnicity by Group 7, 8, and 9. For the social meaning of race and ethnicity, the general meaning of race is in terms of race, people are divided into groups based on a variety of physical characteristics, and those groups are then given social significance. For ethnicity, skin. The social context of race. Race is a socially constructed idea, despite the fact that we often associate it with biological characteristics. It is true that people differ from one another in a variety of ways that involve physical characteristics, but a race only materializes when the citizens of the society decide that a particular physical characteristic, such as skin tone or eye shape, genuinely counts. It was also stated by Obasogi when he interviewed people that were blind from birth that they have the same idea about race as sighted people. This can be concluded that race is not based on what we see but what society implements us to see. So, through the eyes of sociologists, differing people from their races are misleading because in society context, for ethnicity, an ethnic group has a common cultural history. Because of their shared genealogy, language, or religion, people categorize themselves or others as belonging to a certain ethnic group, which gives them a unique social identity. For example, United States is a multi-ethnic country where their citizens may speak more than 3 languages, although their prominent one is English. Some of them may speak Spanish or Italian and some more. In religion aspect, most of them are Protestant, but some can be Roman Catholics. Ethnicity and race are both social constructed, which means the ideas are constructed by the society. The difference between ethnicity and race, ethnicity come from cultural traits, where race comes from biological traits.
Group 7 will now be talking about prejudice and stereotypes. Prejudice is a rigid and unfair generalization about an entire category of people. It is unfair as it puts all people in one category that is described as the same, based on little to no evidence. It targets social class, sex, sexual orientation, age, political affiliation, physical disability, race, or ethnicity. Prejudice is prejudgment that is either positive or negative. Positive prejudice exaggerate the virtues of people like ourselves, and the negative expressed as anything from a mild dislike to outright hostility. While stereotype is a simplified description applied to every person in the same category.
Hence, how closely people are willing to interact with members of some category, people express the greatest social distance, most negative prejudice, by declaring that a particular category of people should be barred from the country entirely. At the other extreme, people express the least social distance, most social acceptance by saying they would accept members of a particular category into their family through marriage. A powerful and harmful form of prejudice, racism, is the belief that one radical category is innately superior or inferior to another. Racism has existed throughout world history, despite their many achievements. The ancient Greeks, the peoples of India, and the Chinese are regarded people unlike themselves as theories of prejudice. Scapegoat theory. Scapegoat theory holds that prejudice springs from frustration among people who are themselves disadvantaged. Conflict theory proposes that prejudice is used as a tool by powerful people to oppress others. Authoritarian theory. Theodore Adorno and colleagues considered extreme prejudice a personality trait of certain individuals. This conclusion is supported by research showing that people who show strong prejudice toward one minority are usually intolerant of all minorities. These authoritarian personalities rigidly conform to conventional cultural values and see moral issues as clear-cut matters of right and wrong. People with authoritarian personalities also view society as naturally competitive and hierarchical, with better people like themselves, inevitably dominating those who are weaker or minorities.
The empirical case that was chosen is a siege in a Papuan student dormitory. So, Surya, one of the students, explained that the start of the siege was caused by the destruction of the Indonesian flag located in front of the dorm. The authorities suspect that the destruction of the Indonesian flag was carried out by unscrupulous students in the dormitory. However, they did not conduct a deeper investigation and jumped straight into performing the siege. The police attacked the dormitory, which was accompanied by tear gas shots. The next day, Saturday, the police broke into the dormitory and transported the students to the Surabaya police station. The police repatriated the 43 students from Papua, and from the result of the examination, all Papuan students admitted that they did not know anything about the destruction of the red and white flag found in front of their dormitory. So, analyzing this empirical case in the context of prejudice and stereotype, racism and prejudice against Papuan is unfortunately not something that is rare in Indonesia. There are countless of cases of racism and discrimination. So, analyzing the dormitory. So, Surya, one of the students, explained that the start of the siege was caused by the destruction of the Indonesian flag located in front of the dorm. The authorities suspect that the destruction of the Indonesian flag was carried out by unscrupulous students in the dormitory. However, they did not conduct a deeper investigation and jumped straight into performing the siege. The police attacked the dormitory, which was accompanied by tear gas shots. The next day, Saturday, the police broke into the dormitory and transported the students to the Surabaya police station. The police repatriated the 43 students from Papua, and from the result of the examination, all Papuan students admitted that they did not know anything about the destruction of the red and white flag found in front of their dormitory. So, analyzing this empirical case in the context of prejudice and stereotype, racism and prejudice against Papuan is unfortunately not something that is rare in Indonesia. There are countless of cases of racism and discrimination against indigenous Papuans or in Indonesia. Even though Indonesia is a country that is famous for its ethnicity, race, customs, religion, culture, as well as high tolerance, however, the reality is that the cases of racism and prejudice against indigenous people in Indonesia cannot be avoided, and even these incidents are repeated. Which is one of the examples is the empirical case I mentioned before. From this, we can conclude that the prejudice against Papuan is apparent, and due to this, the officer made an impulsive judgment and punished them right away without any investigation. Their judgment was clouded due to the negative stereotype placed on Papuans that they're aggressive, and applying one of the prejudice theories, we can use the conflict theory. Conflict theory proposed that prejudice is used as a tool by powerful people to oppress those under them. This can be seen in the case where officers use their power that it supposedly is to protect people, but instead oppress these Papuan students.
Discrimination is an unequal treatment from particular categories of people, especially because of their skin color, race, sexuality, etc. Discrimination is a matter of the institution of society operates with bias. According to Hamilton and Carmichael, institutional bias and discrimination is difficult for people to criticize or even recognize because it frequently involves respected public figures and time-honored customs.
Christian students are even permitted to sit outside but are not given the freedom of space for spiritual extracurriculars. Previously, they would utilize a room before being asked to leave and declaring that the room would be used. Although their spiritual teacher claims that this is not the first time they have been ejected, the teacher also stated that the room is currently being used for other purposes.
The four patterns of pluralism, assimilation, segregation, and genocide that sociologists use to characterize patterns of interaction between racial and ethnic categories in a society are patterns of. The first is pluralism. Pluralism is the acceptance of people's individual distinctions while allowing other groups to preserve their culture as expressions of their unique features. People of all races and ethnicities are distinct but have equal social position in a pluralistic society. Assimilation is defined as the blending or modification of the original properties with the characteristics of the surrounding environment. Sociologists use the term assimilation to describe the process by which minorities gradually adopt patterns of the dominant culture. Assimilation can involve changing modes of dress, values, religion, language, and friends. Assimilation involves changes in ethnicity, but not.
Segregation is the physical and social separation of categories of people. Majority usually segregate minorities by excluding them. Residential neighborhoods, school, occupation, hospitals, and even cemeteries may be segregated. Pluralism encourages distinctiveness without disadvantage, but segregation enforces separation that harms the minority. Hypersegregation means having little to no contact of any kind with people outside the local community. While genocide is a systematic extermination of one group of people by another. Although it defies almost all accepted moral principle, this fatal kind of racism and ethnocentrism has often occurred throughout human history. An example would be
The construction of a new structure for the Saint Joseph Parish in Tanjung Balai Karimun, Riau Island, had to be put on hold when a group of locals appealed to deny issuance of a building permit. Only upon a court ruling can the future of the construction be decided. An earlier group of locals who preferred the church be transferred and turned into a cultural landmark refused the comprehensive renovation of the Catholic Church. According to Kristonto Widodo, the parish priest of Tanjung Balai Karimun's Saint Joseph Parish Catholic Church, no construction work was done at the church while the legal proceedings were going on. Even though the Karimun Regency government approved a building permit (IMB) for the construction of the Catholic Church on October 2, 2019, Abdul Latif, the chairman of FUIB, argued for the rejection, citing Karimun predominantly Muslim population. That's majoritarianism and majoritarianism as a strategy for setting dispute or tension relating to house of worship for people of color is abusive. It's obviously an improper strategy since citizens have the same rights regardless of group, Halil said. The case above shows evident example of interaction between minority and majority cases. Cases like this are common in Indonesia, where many people believe themselves to be superior and do not give minorities the opportunity to express their rights. In the context with the case above, it can be seen that majority, which is Muslim, are reluctant to accept the construction of a new church for the minority, which is Catholic. This shows the action of segregation. The majority is excluding the minority from being able to practice their religious activities. Despite having lots of mosques in the area and the construction being approved, the Karimun Regency approved the Muslim in area still rejected. Since Muslims make up most of the area, they feel entitled to have say in the construction of the church. However, this is not true as both religions have the right to practice their religious activities freely. Though since Muslims are the majority, their protests are more heard and impactful.
Indonesia is a country with a variety of culture and race. Tolerance is very important of discrimination, racism, and other conflicts. All races and cultures are equally good and have their advantage.